think it says that we are live. So,
Yeah.
everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the Arsenal 101 Forum. I have today with me Ebony and Tony. Um, so, I was like, as Apollo would say, what's happening, everyone? Happy New
What's
Year.
good?
What's good? Happy New Year and welcome back to Arsenal 101 Forum. And glad that you could join us today. Before I introduce our panel in totality and ask them how their week have been, I'd like to say a few things. It has been a very, very challenging week for many of us. We saw the storming of the US Capitol by what has been described as terrorists who refused to accept the results of a democratic election. And we're going to continue to see fallout from that. COVID-19 is rampant across many areas of the world, especially in areas such as the UK, which is under lockdown. And also in the US, which had over 4,000 deaths yesterday and over 300,000 deaths to date. And it's a number, millions of people have been affected across the world and million plus have died. So it's really devastating and continues to do so. And even though a vaccine, multiple vaccines have been developed, the distribution of such vaccine and logistics involved are very, very challenging. So for example, where I live in New York, they probably have maybe 1 million plus vaccines available and only thousands have been sent out or distributed or people have been immunized. So it's not going well logistically, but hopefully that will get done because every day that we delay costs lives. I am moderating today's discussion because our beloved friend and colleague Apollo, who I deem to be the CEO of our 101 Forum and normally perform these duties, is in the hospital suffering from COVID. Some of you may know Apollo had COVID back in the summer. He got over it, but he had some post-COVID symptoms. Well, he has caught the virus again. And this time it has been more debilitating, which has landed him in the hospital. So I just want to say to him that we are wishing him a very speedy recovery. Hope he gets well soon. I was somewhat reluctant to do today's show because I felt a little bit strange doing it, given that he is out of commission, basically. But he indicated to me that, brother, the show must, your show must go on. So, Apollo, hope you're watching. Get well soon, brother. And by the way, I know your Washington team lost it yesterday, but they put up a hell of a fight with limited resources at quarterback. So, Ebony, how are you doing? How was your week?
My week's been good, actually. I mean, it's funny, I mean, I'm glad you picked up on, the goings on in the US. We were discussing that, prior to going on air. As I always say, if that was people full of brown skin, there would be a massacre and there'll be funerals planned, and the police officers would actually be pardoned after a few weeks. In the UK, on the other hand, as you alluded to, we're on a lockdown, if you want to call it a lockdown. But unfortunately, there's been so many deaths in the past week or so that, when you think about the UK, or Sup Apollo, when you think about what's happening in the UK, the government haven't got a clue what they're doing and they're making things up as they go along. And this is why people are doing what they want to do, because it's a case of, well, the government have done this and the government are telling people to do this, which doesn't actually make any sense. If the virus is as serious as it is, why are you telling people to go and mix if that's the case? But what I mean, I always say that the UK hasn't experienced a real lockdown in the way that Italy has. So, but as a key worker, I have to go to work because I can't work from home. So in a sense, certain things have changed, but certain things haven't. I do want to say good evening to Apollo. I know you're watching. Get well soon. I wish I could, we could come and see you in hospital, but we know what the deal is. But we know you're watching and you will get well soon. I know you will. So much love to you.
Thanks, Ebony. Mr. Pugilist Boy, Tony, how was
What's
your
up?
week?
What's up? My main man Bertram, great to be here. Lovely to see you all. Last time I came on, actually, I myself had a hiatus away from the 101 Forum, and that was because I was getting in a bit of a dark place with Arsenal. it was not pretty. It wasn't pretty. And I remember missing the Chelsea game because I literally had enough. I literally got to the point of like, this is just, going beyond the joke now. But Chelsea was the turnaround point, and it's great to know that we've had 4 positive results in a row. We're looking for the 5th Apollo. Yeah, so we're just building it slowly, not getting too overconfident. We've done well so far, but we really have a long way to go. But we're in a good place. Very interesting that we're now actually in the transfer window. Interestingly, we're at the 10th of the month now, so we've had a third of the month go, and we've had the kid Rekic come in, the centre back, and who's 19 years old, which to me was an interesting move, because do you realise that Rekic is coming as a centre back? He's 19, and William Saliba is 20. Really weird. So interesting moves afoot, and we look forward to seeing what further moves take place. Kolasinac, I got this weird feeling about Kolasinac moving out. It just leaves us short of a left back, and I just don't understand it. Tierney is a bell cow now. He becomes a must play every minute of every game. So yeah, very strange times. Let's see what they do in the next 20 days. But yeah, great to be here. Let's get it on. In the words of the world famous Mills Lane.
I want to welcome Femi to the forum, Paul over to the forum. Thanks for joining us. I will say a couple of comments on the points you made, Tony, which is one is the Saliba one is really strange. I get the sense Arteta saw him play, didn't think he was ready, and assessing him based on what his expectations are for the position, and a person who, if he brings him to the squad, he expects him to play. I also think for Tierney, he's probably thinking Maitland-Niles is very versatile and can play either left or right, so he's the cover. And normally, maybe he doesn't put him in the game sometime because he wants to make sure someone gets injured. He can have him in that position. Because yesterday, I was challenged to see why he played Suarez versus playing Maitland-Niles, who I think is a better player. And that was interesting, actually. And the question on that question is, will Maitland-Niles become despondent at some point, given his lack of playing time? Because he was being pursued in the summer by Wolves, and also there's been other interests expressed in him. So it's interesting. So now we go to the Newcastle game yesterday, which I thought was a very interesting game. And I will let Ebony go first to give me your perspective on the game, how you sort of saw the game.
We made it, we made it hard for ourselves, as we normally do in this competition. I mean, last year it was against Leeds, and we made it hard for ourselves then. I think throughout the whole game, it was a case of trying to play those short passes and not really going for it in the sense of taking shots well outside the box. But eventually, the substitutions of one of them was Emil Smith-Rowe. He came on. I felt that he should have actually played from the beginning. I think if he played from the beginning, then we would have actually had the game wrapped up. But yeah, I think the fact that the younger ones again are making that difference. But yeah, I mean, it was a tough game, and Newcastle could have actually wrapped it up in the first half. Well, before full extra time. But they didn't take their chances, and Andy Carroll could have, scored at least 2 goals. But you have to, and I have to, admit that it was Leno. Not that I'm not his biggest fan, but Leno was actually awake for that game. But I genuinely thought that for me personally, I don't think Willian should have played. I just don't feel that he's up to speed. I don't think he's as good as Smith-Rowe. But I get the feeling that sometimes the manager has to play these players to justify why they're there in the first place. But yeah, I think a change of personnel from the beginning would have actually wrapped the game up earlier. Yeah, but we got through. We got through. And yeah, and I'm actually quite happy that Aubameyang scored a goal because it lifted up his confidence.
Before I go to Tony, 18, thanks for joining us. Andrew Roach, thanks for joining us also. We have a Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is, but is wishing Apollo a speedy recovery, as we all do. Tony, what is your perspective on yesterday's game? Not sure if you had a chance to watch the game.
Okay, so first in response to what Ebony said in relation to Willian, because I think this is really the key to the whole performance yesterday for me was Willian. I personally just think the whole offensive line, front line, is upset by the way in which Willian performs. I think there's a reliance on the forward-thinking centre midfielder to orchestrate things and to make things happen. And when Willian is playing, and you know what? I kind of felt sorry for him because he was making runs, he was trying to do things, he was, going left, he was going right, but he just doesn't have any understanding with any of the front three. He wasn't linking with Pepe at all. He wasn't linking with Reece Nelson at all. In fact, Reece Nelson was devoid of the ball. And I couldn't understand why. And it seemed that the only time the ball ended up on the right-hand side, well, what was effectively the left-hand side, was when Willian was over there. And you're like, well, why are you going into Reece Nelson's space? And then obviously Aubameyang is being starved of the ball. So it's really important that that central figure, that central midfield figure who's driving things forward is able to, engage with his other front players, because without that, you find yourself having the ball going left, right, but never actually getting in a dangerous position for any of your front three. And obviously, as Ebony says, Reece, Emil Smith-Rowe is a different beast in that respect because he's always looking forward. So it begs the question: why are we continuing to play Willian? And it's clear from the amount we spent or potentially can spend, which I believe to be 30 million over the period of his contract. For that outlay, Arsenal are compelled to try to make that work. Now, it's funny because we're compelled to try to make that work and we're having to suffer in that compulsion to make that work. Yet we wouldn't allow William Saliba, for whom we paid 27 million, the same benefit. We wouldn't give him an opportunity in, say, the Europa League, where we're playing Dundalk and Mulder, to say, you know what, let's try to make this work. Go in and play in the more, lesser games where we feel you can still learn and be a part of our system. We weren't willing to do that. So it seems a bit of a duality in terms of where Arsenal are going. We're not prepared to give Pepe that same run out that we are Willian, but we paid 72 million for this kid. And most of us to the eye test can see that Pepe is by far a better player than Willian ever has been and never will be.
So, well, it's interesting, right? So I watched another live stream yesterday of the game, and I got frustrated because all they were doing was cursing and getting upset without providing the audience some perspective as to what was transpiring in the game and what we need to change to make sure we can penetrate the Newcastle defense. And by the way, I want to say welcome to Victor. Thanks for joining us. And Mistress Apollo, Lisa, is also
Hi, Lisa.
Thanks for joining us, Lisa. Hope Apollo gets well quickly.
Much love, Lisa.
Yeah, much love. We do appreciate all Apollo does, and hopefully he'll tell as Jamaican would say, tell the virus to go away. It's an idiot. So hopefully he gets better soon. So yesterday's game was interesting. I thought a number of things. One is it actually shows that the old force that we used to play that lost prior to us beating Chelsea are still not in sync, are still struggling, are still missing key aspects of the game to be penetrative and to create chances. So think about yesterday's game. And it was sad that Martinelli got hurt in the warm-ups, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery. I think he would have contributed greatly to yesterday's game. So we had Abba, we had William, we had Nelson, we had Pepe. And if you look throughout the game, as Tony alluded to, which is the link-up play, there was a lack of link-up play. Part of the reason is the nature of how these players play. So think about Abba, for example, who's a great goal scorer, but doesn't play well with his back to the goal, doesn't pass well, only can make a wall pass. He can't make any other pass. And you can see that when Laka came on, or Laka held the ball up, then found someone, or that brilliant cushion header to Smith Rowe to get him behind, because Laka is used to playing with his back to goal. Because he doesn't have the speed. Abba has played with speed all his life and hasn't learned to really play as a central striker who can play with his back to goal and also face goal. And that made it challenging. I think Willie, when I think about William, I think about Rooney, where he's fell off a cliff after passing 30. There's a reason why clubs don't give players 3-year contracts after 30, because somehow things change. You have no real rationale as to why they change materially. And you have aberrations like in terms of Ronaldo. But even Messi, you can see Messi's game really changing materially in terms of his contribution, given where he was before, because now he's in his 30s and your body doesn't function accordingly. William is not just about his body, it's about his body of work. So it's one thing for your physical dimensions to change and you can't run as fast or as long as you want to. It's another thing for your game just to seem to have gone away. And Arteta keeps making excuses for William, and he also plays Soares. And you wonder if the agent's influence determines how he sort of plays players. Because frankly, we all have seen it. William has not played well enough to be given game time instead of, say, a Pepe or even Nelson, frankly. And I was supportive of us getting William, but not at 200K and not for 3 years. Because if we then know, if we're going to have another Ozil in our books, but Ozil has some credit in the bank, William has no credit in the bank. If he's going to be here for 3 years and he's so bad and it continues, there's going to be an outcry, especially when people return to the stadium. And I tell you, we'll have a difficult time demonstrating why he keeps playing someone who, frankly, just isn't there. So hopefully, William will play better. Hopefully, he'll start contributing. But right now, it doesn't work.
He's had so many chances, though. That's the thing. I mean, how long do you give a player? I mean, you could say that about Pepe. I think with Pepe, because he hasn't started much, in my opinion, maybe there is something there that's denting his confidence because he hasn't been starting as much as we'd like him to start. I just think with Willian, as good as he can be, I think his best days are behind him. And I think he's one of these players that can maybe play well against a lesser team.
Yeah. So I'll read some of these comments, and you guys have to bear with me. I'm first time doing this. It's from 18. He said, thanks for looking after our captain, Lisa. And we all have that same sentiment. Apollo is saying, Newcastle came in with a solid game plan. A back five forced us to approach the game in a different way to find holes in the baselines. I would agree with that perspective, Apollo, but I think the one thing that we realized is that when the kids came on, somehow we were penetrating. So some of that has to do with the players, and maybe Newcastle was getting tired. Probably has to do with the players and not just the strategy that Bruce employed. It has to have something to do with how creative we are, especially in the final third, or lack thereof by our senior players. We have Andrew saying, Apollo, take care, get well soon. Carletta is saying, Raul and Kia were in charge of Arsenal transfer policy. Carletta, I would agree that it appears that way, and that seems to be reflected in terms of the players we have and their lack of performance. Apollo said, Mario has such a common influence in defense, commands the area, so that Leno doesn't get exposed. So many fans have written Mario off before he's even kicked the ball. I would say that, well, I would have Tony have a perspective on this, Tony. What's your view on Mario's contribution today?
I mean, people who have watched me discuss about Pablo Mario would all understand that I'm a big fan of Pablo Mario, and I've always seen him as being an integral defender for us. He for me represented one of the first buys where I went, there is a horse when it comes to defending as opposed to a donkey. So I always was eager to see him. Obviously, last year he had the 3 games and then the injury. But those 3 games showed me enough, and I obviously was able to see him playing for Flamengo, who are my Brazilian team of choice, when they played Liverpool in the Super Cup, and World Cup actually, wasn't it? And yeah, I'm impressed by him every time I see him. He is very calm under pressure. He's not blessed with super, speed from the blocks, but he can catch up. Much like Tony Adams. Tony Adams was not blessed with super speed off the block, but 5 yards you beat him, but 7, 8, 9, he's catching up very quickly. But his reading of the game is superb. And to deal with a guy like Andy Carroll, I don't think there's more of a handful of a striker in the Premier League than Andy Carroll. He's a behemoth. I mean, Antonio from West Ham, another beast. But most of the other strikers, they're nippy little runners, but they're not behemoths that will, knock you over and, win every powerful header. I really do give credit to Pablo Mari for his performance yesterday.
So Rodney saying Mari plays like Rio Ferdinand, high bar, but off a baller, strong and confident. I was unsure about him because I didn't know much about him. I hoped he would come good, and he's coming good. I would say a couple of things. One is, who will Arteta play going forward? So Gabriel has come in and done really, really well. Holding has played well. David Luiz has played well, actually, even though he had a challenging season last season, giving away a lot of penalties. And now we have Pablo Mari. So we have, at one point, we had Mustafi, we had Socrates, we had people who were really struggling at the back. Now we seem to have 4, you could say, very good defenders. And the question for us is, who are the 2 that will play on a regular basis in the PL going forward? Because Gabriel came in, we all were raving about Gabriel. As Tony would call him not just a horse, but a stallion. And the question now is, Holding seemed to have solidified his position on the right. Arteta is very complimentary of Holding. Going forward, given Mari and David Luiz's contribution today, who do we think who should be, in terms of your view, Ebony and or Tony, and I'll ask Ebony first, who you think should be the 2 starting central defenders?
For me, Rob Holding. I mean, people knock him and know yes, he does make mistakes, and yes, he can be a bit slow off the mark. But I think, once he gets himself into gear, he's actually quite a good marker. I do like it. Who should partner him? I don't see why Gabriel can't partner him. But then, if you're looking for that Brazilian flavor, then it's going to be David Luiz, who gives you that leadership, who gives you that experience, and Gabriel. But one of those 3. I mean, Pablo Mari, I don't have a problem with. As you said, he's not blessed with pace, but he reminds me of Mertesacker. He's not, he's got the brain, but he doesn't have the pace. So I personally, a mixture of all of them, really. And I think at this stage that we're quite lucky to have 4 capable defenders that can actually replace the trash that we need to get rid of right now.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm not too far off what Ebony said, to be honest. I think, Rob Holding has got a mistake in him. I think the other problem I would say with Rob Holding, his distribution's 50-50. He'll do some good balls, but he'll do some bad ones as well. We kind of know that. I think defensively, I think Gabriel is our strongest defender. The guy is, as you said, a stallion. Luiz obviously brings you that distribution, that ability to move the ball to places and find open men, which none of the other 3 are extremely good at. So it's a difficult situation. clearly, Luiz has a huge influence in the dressing room. That's the other thing that you got to consider, because people are always talking about how, you know, influential he is. So bearing in mind that he's got a 1-year contract which ends at the end of June, yeah, we're kind of looking at the quadruple players and saying, like, okay, who's going to be there at the start of next season? Because that's all I think you have to look at now. You have to say to yourself, okay, we have 4 good players, and if they're all fit, who do we play? Well, Luiz is possibly the best distributor, but actually he's unlikely to be there at the start of next season. So we have to find a way to find movement of the ball with the other 3. And that's not even counting Callum Chambers, possibly William Saliba if we don't sell him in the summer. Rekic, who, for his age, 19, you can't write him off. And who else have we got? Mavropanos, who's out on loan. So
it seems like we just play all 10 centre backs because we just are nice. It's just crazy. We just keep buying centre backs. Victor is saying it should be the top of the box waiting for a counter attack. I think he's probably talking about Abba, just like Vardy. And I guess the ball and there's nobody up front. So look, there's a lot of perspective about Abba and his contribution. I think we're talking about our centre backs. I think Carletto says, can you play 2 left-footed CBs at back? I'm of the view that people are not comfortable doing that. Left-footers always seem to struggle more than right-footers when they play together that way, actually, when they have to play one on the right. It's your natural inclination is to kick with your right foot. What can you do it? You can do it. Some left-footers can use their right foot.
It makes no sense to say it doesn't work, Bertrand, because we see 2 right-footed centre-backs all the time. Right. All the time. And,
that is true.
It doesn't create a problem. It's not like you say, well, I've got 2 fantastic right backs, 2 fantastic centre backs, but both of them are right footed, so I can't play one of them. People just do it, and it works. Centre back is one of them positions where you do need to be, you know, ambidextrous and play with both feet, just like any other player on the pitch. You know, gone are the days where you had like a single-footed player like Nigel Winterburn was so left-footed, could not do anything off his right foot. You know, we saw Tierney score a cracker with his right foot last week. So it's clear that, you know, in today's football, you have to be able to play with both feet and play off of both feet.
Right. I think, look, at the end of the day, I do agree that it's possible to do. I am not sure, though. I've seen too many left-footers in the middle of the park. I normally see 2 right-footers sometimes, or right and a left, but 2 left, that's sometimes challenging. We'll know got a player ratings, so we'll start with you, Ebony, sort of go through your view as to how people performed yesterday. I've stayed away from looking at any ratings from any forums or any media outlets, you know, not to be influencing my perspective of yesterday. I did spend time really assessing the players' performance and how well they did. So love to get your perspective. Dan Millington, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you joining us today. And as we said previously, Apollo is not feeling well. He's in the hospital, and we wish him best of wishes and hope he gets well soon. So Ebony, what were your sort of player ratings from yesterday?
Okay, you're going to have to remind me who was playing again. Right, so Leno, I'm going to give him a 7. I thought he played, for me anyway, I thought he played incredibly well. I don't often say that about Leno because he does have mistakes in him. However, you know, I will repeat exactly what I say every single time I rate Leno. He needs to be decisive. He needs to stop this indecision. Okay, he needs to stop, you know, he needs to learn how to play with his feet. I don't think he's actually quite got that yet. However, he made some vital saves, especially that one from Andy Carroll. So I'm going to give him a 7.
You give it Leno a 7. I'm so happy for Leno.
That just feels like a 10 for me.
Yeah,
you think that's too high. That's too high.
That's a 10.
Leno a 7 feels like she just gave him a 10.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be fair, he has been playing well of late, but Martinez is still better. Let's not even go there. Okay, so Tierney, best left back in the Premiership. I don't care what anyone says. He's the best left back in the Premiership. I'm going to give that boy an 8. I just love the way he handles that left side. I like the fact that it's like he knows when to make that run in order to cover who he needs to cover in play. I think he's just phenomenal. Every time the boy passes, he just amazes me. I'm going to give him an 8. Who else is playing?
You had Leno, you had Tierney, you had Mari in the middle, along with David Luiz, and then you had on the right Suarez.
Mari, I like the way he commands his area. I mean, as we discussed, he's not blessed with pace, but he's like a Mertesacker, in the sense that he's not blessed with pace, but he commands his area, and that's the kind of defender that we need. I mean, ideally, it would be nice to have pace and command, but when you have that type of defender that can actually command the area so that the goalkeeper doesn't have much to worry about, for me, I think that's a bonus. So I'll give him a 7. David Luiz, I'm going to give him 7. David Luiz does what he does. I mean, he does have a mistake in him, and he does have the inclination of giving away penalties. However, I thought he did okay. Who was on the other side? Suarez. I mean, we didn't concede, put it that way. He was okay.
Thanks to Andy Carroll.
Yeah. I'll give him a 7. Maybe he should have actually been a bit more awake for Andy Carroll, to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, he was all right. He wasn't. I think he was the worst out of the defense. However, I don't know. I'll give him a 7. Who was in the midfield again?
We had El Neni, Willock, and William.
Okay. El Neni, for me, there was a little bit of this backwards, sideways for me, which he needs to cut out. And he was actually doing quite well until the last game, in which he was backwards, sideways. I like it when he goes forward because you can see the potential there. He's got potential, but he needs to, concentrate on going forward. So I'll give him a 6. Willock, unlucky not to score that header. 6. Willian, worst of the bunch. Sorry. I give him a 3. He just, Willian is one of those players whereby you want him to do well, but he just gets into a position and he just doesn't know what to do. And this is why, he looked good against Fulham, and he hasn't really played that well since Fulham. So yes, I'm giving him a 3. Sorry, Willian, but I think it's time for you to sit down. Who else is there?
Up front, we had Nelson, Abba, and Pepe, who started.
Nelson, give him a standard 5. Wasn't the greatest. Saka, for me.
But don't go Saka yet. Abba.
Pepe.
Abba and Pepe.
Okay, Aubameyang. He was unlucky not to score earlier. I'm happy that he scored his goal. I still think he needs to work on his crossing. I really do, because he's not the best crosser of the ball, quite frankly. I think he needs to work more on his off the ball techniques, if you like. I mean, he's not very good off of the ball, but once he runs into that position and he's got the ball at his feet and he can actually score, he's great. But apart from that, his all-round game isn't as prevalent as I'd like it to be. I'll give him a 5. Saka, standard 7. Saka was unlucky not to score yesterday. That ball that went over the crossbar.
What about Smith Rowe?
Smith Rowe, one of my favorite players. Once he's on that pitch, you understand why he needs to start. I'm not saying burn him out, but you understand why he controls that number 10 role. He can pick up a pass. He can go forward. He's just a magician. I'm going to give him an 8. Saka, he actually played quite well, for once. And I'm not his biggest fan either. So I'll give him a 7.
What about the manager?
The manager, I'm going to give him a 7. I think, his selection, I wish that he would go back to selecting the kids from the start. And I wish he would stop playing some of these older players, because especially Willian, who doesn't do very well. Willian just doesn't offer anything to anyone. I'm sorry, but he just doesn't. He's one of these players whereby, as I said, he looks good against the likes of Fulham, but he in order for us to continue that momentum as we did with Chelsea, West Brom, he needs to stick with the combination of youth and experience, but I would rather see Smith Rowe in that position on the pitch than Willian.
So before I go to Tony,
you forgot Lacazette, buddy.
Lacazette. For me personally, I thought he was quiet. 5.
Okay. So I go to some of the ratings from our audience, and I'll then come to Tony. Andrew has Leno at 7, Tierney at 9, David Luiz 7, Mario 7, Cedric 7, a lot of 7s, Elneny 6, Willock 6, William 4, Reece Nelson 6, Abba 6, Smith Rowe 8, Saka 8, and Xhaka 7. And Xhaka getting some love today, even from Ebony, which is good. Apollo has Leno 7.5, Soares 5, David Luiz 7.5, Mare 7, Tierney 8, Elneny 6, Willock 5, Pepe 5.5, Willian 3, Nelson 4, Abba 5, Saka 7, Smith Rowe 8, and Xhaka 7. And we can see that from the ratings that have been given today that William is pulling up the rear. Let's hear what Tony's grades are.
Well, I'm interested with Apollo's marks, because I always keep my eye on what he scores Cedric, and he scored a 5. But yet he praises him so much. I just don't get it. I really don't understand. Where has this guy shown you anything that makes you think he's the heir apparent to Hector Bellerin or any other great right back at Arsenal? I'm sorry, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles is our best right back, and he doesn't want to play as a right back. Yeah. So clearly, we shouldn't be playing him at right back. He has a bet. He play. We should play him in the midfield. I mean, he's good enough to perform in there. But here we go. Let's move on to my score. So Leno.
Before you go, I want to say big up, Il. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Figure.
Yeah, what's up? What's up, Dylan? So yeah, Leno gets a 7. Great performance by Leno. Didn't do anything wrong. Interesting that Newcastle didn't figure to try and pump balls in, because I'm sure if you pump balls in to the top to Andy Carroll, as I said before, there's none more difficult to mark aerially than Andy Carroll in the Premier League.
But Tony, you have to have the ball to pump it in, and they really have much of the ball.
This is true. But yeah, they didn't take advantage of that, I believe. And in all honesty, when the ball was pumped up to him, he was way out of the goal area anyway. So Mari and Luiz did a great job there. So 7 for Leno, good job, great save when he had to. And actually, distribution wasn't bad. They did at time to time get a little bit out of sync with their little play out of the box with 6 players standing at literally outside the box, but more often than not, that actually worked. So yeah, I'm happy with Leno's performance. Tierney, 8. Fantastic. And the fact that he plays 120 minutes hard, you know, I see this kid as it's something else. You know, I watch all the training videos during the week. Everybody's up and got the snood on, the hat and air muffs and everything, and him just walk out, shorts and a t-shirt.
He's Viking. He's a Viking.
He's a Viking. And then he plays that way. You know, he plays hard in training, which is what got him into trouble a bit early in his career at Arsenal. But he plays that way in the match. And yesterday, they got to a point where, you know, I think it was like 110 minutes in. I'm thinking to myself, God, this guy, he's done so much work down that left. And it looked like he was struggling a bit physically. And then you see that ball from Xhaka and he's like, boom, and lays on the sitter for Aubameyang. So, you know, I just love him. So 8.5, sorry. What am I getting? 9. What am I getting? 9. I was thinking of someone else. I give Tierney a 9, and he is my man of the match. Mari and Luis both got a 7. You can't give him less than that. That was a clean sheet, played up against a physical beast in Carroll. Nobody else in the Newcastle team was really doing anything, but yeah, they dealt with that. And a clean sheet, so yeah, 7s. Sorry, my guy, but I'm looking at what Tierney does down the left and then looking across and thinking, well, you got the same opportunity, bro. Why aren't you doing all that? And it tells, because, you know, he's not getting assists. He's not putting the ball. He's not creating anything for Pepe. I look up and I see Pepe and he's doing things and he's not got no support from this kid. So for me, Suarez is just, he's just not the one. I'm sorry.
So here's a question, Tony, as you go through, which is, one of the question is, if you're Pepe, why aren't you smart enough to like switch wings sometime? If you're not getting the support, then you just find a way to say, you know what, Nelson, why don't you come on the right and I go on the left a little bit, right?
Yeah, I got this feeling that they're under instruction.
Okay.
Because you see that with other managers. Other managers just go, switch. You know, and Arsenal don't do it. We're rigid in that. And it seems almost as if occasionally you get Pepe in a central role, and you and I have both been in agreement. We feel that he could do something centrally, you know, which is what he did at his previous club.
When he played William centrally yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very strange, you know. For me, you look at certain situations, you go switch, bring Pepe in the middle, send Willian out right. Let the defense never get settled with who they're defending. Let players get opportunities to come up one-to-one against different players in game. You know, it gives them a difficult task. If I've got the same guy to mark for 90 minutes, my job is made a hell of a lot easier. Whereas if I've got 3 guys coming at me from different angles at different time in the game, my job's more difficult.
Carletto says it's a key of it. Hey, Carletto, great point. Maybe he's a 10.
So then I move on to El Neni and Willock. Willock didn't shine. He tried, but, you know, I'm giving him a 6. He tried. El Neni, I'm going to give a 6 as well. I didn't think he had the best of games, but, you know.
Don't forget that through ball to Abba, where Abba plays wide. That's a brilliant ball.
Yeah. But other than that, he didn't really. And he's still, you know, I look at his first touch every time and think, look up. And he doesn't. And more often than not, he ends up going backwards and sideways. And it's great when he does find the ball, but it's just too infrequently.
Yep. Kenan, welcome. Sorry, Tony. Kenan for the welcome from Kenan for the TV. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
And the thing I would say with the 2 midfielders, Willock and El Neni, is they don't often find themselves with a clear and obvious choice of player to pass. in front of them. And this is where Lacazette makes a difference. Because unlike Aubameyang, Lacazette doesn't stay stationary. He'll come back in the middle of the park and say, all right, just play a 1-2 with me. Play 1-2. Let's play 1-2-3. And let's just keep the ball moving around so that you have options. Whereas Aubameyang, he kind of just doesn't have that in his game. So then we move up to the front four. I'll start with Aubameyang. I'll give him a 7. He worked hard, took his goal really well. He had a couple of other opportunities which he scuffed. He had a header which I think, could have done better. But you and I, Bertram, both agree there's not a great deal to Aubameyang unless he's scoring goals.
It's becoming more and more obvious as time progresses.
It is.
Every week it gets emphasized more and more.
In fact, I've missed out my players behind him, haven't I? I went straight to Aubameyang instead of going to Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson was out of that game. He just wasn't. He wasn't in that game.
So he had 2 great chances, right? The one he miscontrolled and the one where he took a touch versus just the one side, just use the side of his foot and place in the corner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm giving Reece Nelson a 4. I'm giving Willian a 3. I'm giving Pepe a 6 because he tried. His shooting boots weren't on yesterday. I noticed Pepe. He had 3 or 4 opportunities to hit that beautiful left foot, top left-hand corner shot, and he didn't quite get it right on any occasion.
Did you say Abba 7? I don't remember. What you gave Abba?
Abba give a 7.
You gave Abba a 7?
Yeah.
Before after you smoke the pipe. Before after you smoke the pipe. I think Apollo has the same view that I did actually on that.
So yeah, then I go to the substitutes. I give who came on first was Xhaka. I'll give him a 7 because he did make a difference in the middle. I'll give Saka an 8. I love that kid. I can't tell you how impressed I am every time he touches the ball. And then I'll give Smith Rowe 8.5. Took his goal wonderfully. He's very progressive, as we've all alluded to. And yeah, was very close to man of the match. But really, I was kind of perturbed by them giving him man of the match because I was like, hang on a second, he only came on in the second half. He didn't play the whole game. And then I was looking and thinking, well, look at what Tierney's been doing up and down that flank all day. And then right as they announced that he was man of the match, Tierney lays on the sitter for Aubameyang, and it's like, there you go. There's your man of the match performance in a nutshell.
Right. What about the manager?
As I said before, I feel like he's compelled to have to play some of these players to try and get a tune. Like Willian, we all know he should not even be near our bench, let alone the first team's starting 11. But yet still they're persisting because to me, you can't. It's something they're saying like you have to try and get this guy in. You have to get him to work, and it seems like they're making more of an effort to integrate Willian than they are anybody else, including Saliba and Pepe. So I kind of feel like his hands are tied, but are his hands really tied? None of us know the answer to that question. I'm going to give him a 6.
Okay. So I'll look at some of these comments. Kalada is saying, Abba must be taking money out of Tony and Bertram's pocket, always criticizing him. In my defense, I would say this. I'm going to start using euphemism when I talk about players. So instead of if somebody's saying the players are terrible, horrible, I want to say they need to work on their game. That seems to be more digestible. But let me say about Abba. Here's what I say about Abba, which is Abba is a great goal scorer. and I don't use the word great loosely. He's a great goal scorer. And yesterday you saw some of the shots he took outside of his right foot, inside of his right foot. You can tell that he's just someone who's putting the ball in the net. But when you have difficulty making a simple pass, when you don't know how to shield the ball, when you struggle to beat a man, and you really do it in a game, the game is not just about just scoring goal. And that's why people don't realize why Bamford played for Leeds. The game has a totality to it. How do I move off the ball? How do I press? How do I make space for others? How do I beat a player? How do I create opportunities for others? It's not just about putting the ball in the net. That's a unique skill, and that's why players get paid so much for playing center forward and scoring goals. If you think about Aguero for City, for example, when Guardiola first came in, he benched him and wasn't playing him at one point because you know what? He wasn't working hard enough. He was scoring goals still, and he's a good hold-up player. Abba has done well in a number of leagues, including his last stop at Dortmund. But this is an unforgiving league he plays in, which is the Premier League. Your flaws are showing up. Your flaws are very prominent because the league asks a lot than just one-dimensional players, which is why my favorite player, Ozil, struggles because he doesn't play the defensive part of the game, even though he's brilliant on the ball, and why Abba's flaws are showing up, especially when he's not scoring. So think about it. If you don't score goals and you don't contribute in other areas, what's your purpose on the field? So Kaleta, Tony and I love Abba. We just don't love his overall game. Tony, any perspective on Abba? Give him Arleta's comments. Or Kaleta's comments.
I'm like yourself, really. I mean, look, we have to be critical of all our players. We can't just have favourites because, look, what Alba did for us last season, puts him up there. We have to give him praise and say he saved our season last year, quite simply. Yeah. But we're in a new season, and this season he's been outperformed by Lacazette, and not by a little bit, by a huge amount. And he's not playing well up front, and he's not playing well on the wing. There are better positional players than Aubameyang in both positions, up top or on the wing. So he therefore is relegated to having to be the goal scorer. Because if I'm picking my first 11, I'm actually leaving him out because he's not a specialist in any of the positions at the top of the pitch, with the exception of goal scoring, which he isn't doing at the moment.
Yeah, I'll say this actually. I think Andrew mentioned Firmino is the perfect example of a modern-day striker. Andrew, what I would say on that is two things. One is Liverpool fans are sometimes frustrated with Firmino because he doesn't score as much as they think he should. But they love other aspects of his game, which is what we're talking about Aubameyang, which is we need to see more than just balls in the net. Because when the ball doesn't go in the net, what else do you do for the team? And Tony are perfectly synchronized. We are perfectly synchronized when it comes to this, which is if you're so one-dimensional, then if you don't score, why do we need you on the field? Think about it this way. Arteta got lucky yesterday, or he get lucky going forward. If Martinelli was not injured, who would be the starting three up top? Lacazette has solidified his position in the center of the park as center forward as the 9. Saka cannot be dropped going forward. And if Martinelli is playing well, do you play Abba over Martinelli? That is something the manager will have to deal with going forward when Martinelli gets fit. William is not in the equation. Pepe is not in the equation.
As I've said so many times before, sometimes you have to drop your big players. Lacazette is not Lacazette. Aubameyang is that big player that sometimes you have to drop him. He's not playing well. And sometimes when your players are not playing well, you have to show them, look, you're not playing well. I'm going to drop you in order for them to get back up to speed. And I'm happy. And when Aubameyang wasn't playing for those couple of games, we did better. And that's not a disrespect of Aubameyang. That's just telling it as it is. And sometimes, and as Tony says, sometimes you have to be critical of your players. And I'm critical of all of them. When they play well, I will say that they play well. When they're garbage, you have to tell it like it is.
I think Victor is saying, so no, Tony, if that's the case, someone forcing the manager and William will be playing at least 30 minutes. It's just Arteta is just clueless. Watch this space. Smith Rowe will miss the next games. I don't think so. I think for Arteta, Smith Rowe and Saka are locked in, and Lacazette. As it stands today, they're locked in. The only position that's open is on the wing is Abba, and he's going to play Abba. He's the captain. He's done well in the past. Those are the starting four. I think Martinelli may come in and upset the apple cart there because he provides a dimension which we don't have. His energy alone is more than anyone else in the team, and he makes you think if you play football at a certain level, the most disheartening thing is someone is always in your back, always nagging at your feet. You want some room, you want some space, and you can't get in the space. That's the most difficult thing to play against. Not someone who's like Abba's going to play when he feels like it. So I look, I love Abba's goal scoring ability. I just don't love some other aspects of his game. I think 18 is saying, I think Bertram has been hitting that one with a dead drum. Aubameyang did better yesterday. So I'll say this about yesterday, and I'll talk about my player ratings. I'll get to it when I get to my player ratings. I'll go through pretty quickly. One is I gave Leno a 9. I thought it was man of the match. And my rationale is if Leno doesn't save Andy Carroll goal, we don't go to extra time, we don't win the game. No way, we're out. That goal was a lifesaver for us. It was point blank. I think Carroll could have done better. In fact, I think Carroll should have scored the first chance he got because he kicked the ball early. All he was control the ball and playing the goal. It was wide open. He had to, in fact, it was so open, it was unbelievable. He rushed the shot because he's probably rusty and hadn't played for a while. So I gave them a manager match. I gave him a 9. I gave Suarez a 5. I am not big on Suarez. Tony called him, I won't call him a donkey. He's just not a stallion. He's not even a horse. I'm not sure what he is. He's an average player. And he has a 4-year contract, which is disheartening. I gave David Luiz a 7.5. David Luiz is a footballer. His head may go sometimes. He may make these rash decisions and sometimes don't think through what's the risk I'm taking and what's my reward. But if you think about the balls he pings over the top, he's comfortable on the ball. He's a footballer, and he's sometimes very physical. Sometimes makes fouls that he probably shouldn't. But I thought he played well. I gave Mari a 7. I think Mari has done really well since he's come in. I'd be curious to see what Arteta does between Mari and Gabriel going forward, because Mari hasn't put a foot wrong. I gave Tierney also a 9, like I gave to Leno. Look, Tierney, I've said this before in a number of instances where Tierney needs to prove to me that he can contain the Mahrez, the Salahs, the Traores when he plays against them, the Sterlings, because I do think they burn him. Having said that, he's been phenomenal during this winning streak, and he's played well almost all season, and he has that Viking mentality and that Viking perspective. But I need to see some Ashley Cole, which is I lock down the better players, the real phenom, the real better players. I want you to lock them down. Then you can get my accolades around you being exceptional. Until then, I have to see more. When you play against top-level talent, which is why I gave Ozil such a hard time, because when he plays the big matches, he disappears. You got to play against top talent, because if you want to win leagues, you want to win cups, that's what you need to do. I'm a big Willock fan. I know people knock Willock. I can see the potential there. It's not coming out. Decision-making needs to improve, and he needs to know when to get rid of the ball versus trying to find the perfect pass. So I gave Willock a 5. I'm also supportive of El Nene. He struggled the last couple of weeks. I gave him a 6. More balls like he played to Abba needs to be played in the game. He doesn't do that well. I thought William started off the game well, but as usual, it got worse and worse as we went along. So I gave William a 4. And it's getting really bad now because every game William gets a 4 or below. That cannot be positive for anyone else. And the only person who's seen him doing well and think he should deserve his place is the manager. I gave Nelson a 5. I don't want to be too harsh on Nelson. He hasn't played in a while. He's been injured. He played really well in the Europa League in certain games. He was the best player, but it's been a struggle for him in terms of injuries. I gave Abba a 5. I thought Abba should have scored at least the ball, and then they provided to him. It's one-on-one with the keeper. The other one, he took a really good shot that the keeper saved, but he's not really in the game as much. And here's what people don't seem to realize. We keep saying players are not getting the ball or in the game. I don't see Saka struggling to get balls. I don't see Smith Rowe struggling to get balls because you put yourself in position to receive those passes. You don't go high behind the defender or not moving well off the ball. So even though Abba is a great goal scorer, as I keep beating the drum on, the aspects of his game which he needs to improve. I thought Pepe yesterday had an up and down game. In spurts, he looked really well. He looked really good. But when he got in the box, there's sometimes I think he should shoot when he tried to go by the man. And other times I think he should go by the man when he try to shoot. So I think he's struggling with confidence. You can see the innate talent in his game. You can see he has exceptional skills. But skills only get you so far. You got to be positional. You have to move well. You got to cut out your turnovers. Smith Rowe doesn't turn the ball over, really. So similar to Saka. In the Premier League, it's heresy to keep giving the ball away. This is not ping pong. You have to keep the ball and make sure you are in possession. That's why Guardiola and others value possession so much. You have to keep the ball. And he doesn't do that really well. I thought Xhaka bossed the game when he came on. Took a great shot. That volley was a great shot. That ball he gave to Tierney on the left was a great ball that led to, I think it was Aubameyang's goal. So I think Xhaka played really well yesterday, and I know he gets a lot of stick, and deservedly so sometimes, but he did well. And I gave Laka a 6. I think Laka was a short period on the field, but that header was a beautiful header. He really cushioned the header that he laid in the Smith Rowe's path. And I left Smith Rowe for last because I think Saka I gave Saka an 8, and Smith Rowe I gave 8.5. I think Smith Rowe has clearly demonstrated that he's solidified his place in the team. If you look at the last 4 games we've played, and we have won all 4, including 3 in the league, he's been instrumental, along with Saka, in how we've been uplifted. And people have to realize that the kids are the ones that's turning the season around, not the more seasoned players who you're supposed to rely upon most times to definitely drive your season. The kids have done a phenomenal job and are justifying their places. And I think I'm going to go off on a tangent here by saying, if we're saying we're going to have a self-sustaining model, right? And we're really not winning, we're not winning the league, then you got to employ the Dortmund model. Why don't we try to be the team that play kids, bring them in like the Sanchos of the world, the kid from Birmingham who went there reading a junior who plays in the midfield, the Brandt of the world. We have these young kids from Dortmund's team who are doing really well and are competing with Bayern, not necessarily winning the league. That is a combination, having those kids plus some seasoned vets, especially in your defense, to help move us forward, because the Kroenkes aren't going to spend a ton of money. So we have to find a way to compete with the Man U's and the Cities and others. And it has to be a hybrid model, which is I have some seasoned players, but I bring kids through knowing they're going to get game like the Baloguns, because I have no idea what Balogun was on the bench yesterday, or at least started, and make sure they feel like they have a pathway to the first team, enable them to do well. So,
but then again, they're going to have to get rid of the deadwood as well, because from what I'm hearing, in order to actually spend any money, they've got to get rid of the dead wood. And we've got quite a few bits of dead wood. To be honest, I don't know how much money we have. And in this pandemic, we've been given, what, £120 million loan from Barclays Bank, is it?
Yeah.
So it's from the window. So every country has what they call a window, which is a place you can go borrow money. Banks normally borrow from those windows. So you get a bank, for example, Barclays Bank will borrow from the Bank of England. Still in the US, you have the Fed here. So you can borrow money from that. Tottenham, I think, borrowed 170. And the reason why you're allowed to do it, you got to meet certain criteria to do so. So you got to employ people. There are a lot of guidelines around what those criteria are for you to be able to borrow from the window. I was always saying, why is Arsenal not borrowing from the window? And the reason why you do is because the interest rate is probably, 50 basis points, which is less than 1%. It's very cheap money. You can take the money and reinvest it someplace and buy a secure note someplace, get interest up and above what the Bank of England is paying. They're borrowing the money to pay off. Obviously, the revenues we're generating may not be sufficient to satisfy certain obligations that we have. So they're borrowing money to do that. But it's cheap money. It's like somebody loaning you money, Ebony, and say, Ebony, I'm going to lend you $100,000. You can pay me back down the road, but I'm charging you little or no interest. You could take the money, go invest it someplace else and make more money and pay them back their money. So
I'm just quite intrigued by that, actually, because we're supposed to have an owner. I mean, I need to read up read up upon how these things work, but we have an owner who's a multi-billionaire. So I'm actually quite intrigued as to, you know, the money that's been borrowed. But in saying that, you know, considering that we do have this dead wood, is there any, you know, are there any teams out there that actually want the likes of Mustafi, Kolasinac? I mean, we can turn around and say that, you know, if Kolasinac goes, then, you know, we've only got one left back, but Kolasinac has never been a left back for me anyway. He's been a winger, but he's never been a left back. He's never been that good at going at defense in the Premier League. This is why I don't watch players on YouTube. And then we've got Mustafi, who's just been awful from day one. And then who else have we got that's deadwood?
We have Mustafi. We have well, we have a few actually.
Socrates is another one as well.
Yeah.
So what happens? You know, who wants to buy these players because they're awful? And I think that's probably the only way going forward, because if you take into consideration the pandemic, you know, clubs are not making enough money. Unless you buy merchandise, then I don't see of any other way in order to fund who we actually need. I mean, we definitely need a new goalkeeper, because I have absolutely no faith in Renarsson. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, he's bad.
Should Leno get injured, we're screwed.
So let's touch upon some of these comments, and we'll touch upon that actually. D saying the only CMs we should keep are Partey and AMN. I'm not sure if others consider AMN a CM. Ceballos ain't gonna be permanent, so I want the Arsenal to sign Bissouma and Sander from. I think he's from what? Is he? I'm not sure where he's from. He's from
Sanderberg.
Sanderberg. Is he from Brighton? Maybe. Sell the rest of their garbage. Bissouma is from Brighton, so we're going to take the Brighton's midfield. Look, I do think we can talk a lot about what we need as a team, and we do need, at least our defense seems to be solidified, right? We probably need another left back. As Ebony says, we need a goalkeeper, because we were all crossing our fingers yesterday. So Leno, please don't get hurt. Whatever you do.
Sanderberg's from Sheffield United. Sorry.
Oh, he's from Sheffield. Okay, so I messed that up. Sanderberg from Sheffield. He's got a lot of he's got reviews about being very good, and Bissouma also has been connected with us. It'd be interesting to see what happens when it comes to who is the player going to play beside Partey. You need legs in the midfield. You need legs in the midfield. You don't just need players who's going to be there and who has reputation. You need legs. So we got to ensure that we get people in the midfield who have some quickness and some stamina to get around the park, because Partey plays both ways. He's a box-to-box midfielder, even though he's probably more defensive than offensive. So we'll need people to play beside him who also have some of those capabilities. Thanks, D, on Sanderberg, and thanks, Tony, for helping with that pronunciation. Tavius saying, Carlo Bros, Xhaka is too slow, and let's be honest, he ain't good. I think in this forum, we've talked about Xhaka quite a bit. Xhaka is hot and cold, actually. Yesterday, he played like he played for Switzerland. The game before, he played like he played for Switzerland. For most of the season, he played like someone who plays for Fulham or for one of those West Brom. Sometimes he's hot and cold. I think it depends on how he feels. He's a little bit of a hot head, but he has ability. We're not saying Xhaka can't play. We do think he's somewhat slow and
mistake prone.
Still want him out.
He's very mistake prone, and I still want him out. Sorry.
So before we conclude today, our last topic is on my favorite player, who is Mesut the Great Ozil.
Lazy, call him his name. Lazy.
Or as I affectionately call him, Lazy. And I'd say this actually, there's a lot of commentary about Ozil this week. Discussion about him going to the MLS to Miami or going to Turkey with Fenerbahce. And the question is, one is, are people happy to see him go? Are people sad to see him go? Should have been in the squad? And most importantly, is he an Arsenal legend? Ebony?
Okay, I'll come back to the last bit last. It's, for me personally, it's sad to see him go. I think what needs to be questioned is what has actually happened behind the scenes with the whole situation of him not playing. I don't think anybody knows. There's been a lot of speculation about that. There's been speculation about, the fact that he's Muslim and the way that the Muslims have been treated in China wasn't supported, because he wanted support for that in the same way as BLM has been supported, but apparently the club said no. I don't know whether that's true or not. So somebody could, enlighten us on that. I think that there have been times when, he hasn't been playing well, and maybe that's something that has been playing on his mind as to why he's not given his all. Then again, he had problems with Emery, and we don't really know the situation behind that either, apart from the fact that, apparently he said in Turkish that he's not a manager, he's not a coach. When we got battered by Chelsea in Baku. It is sad to see him go because he has so much potential. I think with the right mix and with the right management, I don't know. Maybe the best can be brought out of him. And should he go to MLS or should he go to Fenerbahce? Then maybe we will see the old Özil that we fell in love with when he was at Real Madrid. But yeah, I mean, I wish him all the success wherever he goes. I hope he's happy. I hope that he wins more accolades. Is he a legend? I'd say he is. What's the other? Not legend. I would say that he's more of a cult hero over as opposed to legend. I mean, he's done pretty well. I mean, he did pretty well in the first 3 years, but then he fell off, and that's due to problems. And when we're talking about the fact that he's always ill, with his back or his foot or his head or what have you, we need to question, what is the real story? And maybe one day he'll write a book and speak about it. Who knows? But he's more of a cult hero than a legend. In my opinion, but he has been good, and he has actually he's been a great assist. He scored some wonderful goals. I remember the goal that he scored. I can't remember the name of the team, but it was in the Europa, I think, where he scored that beautiful goal where he dummied the goalkeeper, and then he actually went on to score the goal. I know a lot of you can remember the goal that I'm talking about. But yeah, he has given us some great times, but I wish him all the success. I'm not going to badmouth him, because in a way I feel sorry for him, because I'd really, really love to know the real story behind the situation. But good luck to him, and I really do mean that.
So you mean the goal against Ludogorets, where he
that's the one.
Chips two players.
Chip the goalkeeper, yeah.
Then he dummies the last man.
So some of the comments, 18 says Ozil is a legend, so not sure he aligns with your perspective. Ebony. D saying legend. Unbelievable some of the stuff people come out with. Shaking my head. That is D about legend. It's interesting actually, and I'll get Tony get his perspective on Ozil. Tony, what's your view on the legend, as 18 says he is?
Okay, let's put this into its true perspective. We are talking about a footballer who plays for Arsenal currently, who's at the end of his career. Simple as that.
He's only 30. He's only 32.
No, he's not only 32. This man has been playing football for four great teams. He's been playing football longer than some of our youth team have been born.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So what we have to do is we're asking the question: is he a legend? Are we asking the question: is he an Arsenal legend? That's the question which you got to pertain to. This is where it can get fuzzy, because is Mesut Ozil a football legend? Yes. World Cup winner, La Liga winner, European Cup winner, no, he didn't win the Premier, FA Cup winner. He's just his medal cabinet is ridiculous. Plus, he's the only player to have the number of assists record in all 4 different leagues that he's played in. He has a unique record which nobody else can attest to. He's an assist genius. And in the first 2 years at Arsenal, he showed that. 20 assists, 12 goals, just ridiculous. So if you're looking at this guy and thinking, okay, just on his Arsenal career, he had 2.5 amazing seasons. Then he's had 2 seasons of nothing, where he was in and out, and not really ever stamping his authority on any big game or any, game that had a meaning. Yeah. Then you're gonna go, well, does that ratify him to be given legendary status at our club? And I'll let you decide. You have your own decision on that at our club. But as a footballer, he's up there with Zidane. He's up there with Ronaldinho. He may not be as skillful as those players, but in terms of an assist leader in a team like Real Madrid, there's no if, buts, or maybes. He's up there. He's a legend of the game of football. And if you take all of his career highlights and put them into one reel, it's long. Now, in terms of, what was the first part of the question, Bertram?
Well,
am I sad to see him?
Sad to see him go, and
right.
How he's been treated.
I'm sad to see him go. I'm sad to see him go because I just feel, as Ebony said, it's unfortunate that there's absolutely no transparency in what's going on behind the scenes. And it's all going to come down to when he's left the club 2 years, 3 years down the line, and he writes his book and he says, this is what happened at Arsenal. Just the same way Robin Van Persie went out the club, everybody was like, la, 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 Robin Van Persie. Then he writes the book and everyone goes, now we know what really went on. And then you suddenly think, well, you was right. You was right to do what you did. So I don't think we can ever really understand and try to second guess what's really going on until the truth comes out. And when the truth comes out, then you can say, okay. But for right now, I'm sad. I'm sad what is going on with what once was a legend of the game of football. It's like this. Imagine you were Flamengo and you get Ronaldinho on the end of his career. Like, this is what happened. Ronaldinho, the very end of his career, he goes back to Brazil. Flamengo, the fans are rapturous. We've got Ronaldinho. And then we see a shadow of what was 20 years of amazing footballer. And occasionally, he'd be like, fantastic. But more often than not, he was just a fat slouch on the pitch. And they weren't seeing all the goals and all the assists and all the wonderful passes and the no-look this and the no-look that. And you got to go, well, is he a Flamengo legend? Well, clearly not, but he was a legend.
So I'll say a couple of things. One is, I think something that Naja Tony brought up, I don't necessarily agree with. I would never compare Ozil to Zinedine Zidane and Ronaldinho. That's heresy. Let's think about it this way. There has been no dispute around Zinedine Zidane's talent or Ronaldinho's talent. None, by anyone. Ronaldinho's career ends early, just like a Kaká ends, just like Rivaldo ends early, because all those players from Brazil seem to spend a lot of time partying as much as they're playing. I mean, brilliant footballers, but if you party as hard as you play, at some point, something has to give, and their career are the ones that suffer. So think about Rivaldo, think about Kaká, Think about all these Brazilian players, their careers end pretty early, before they even hit 30, because they party too much, frankly. That's the key theme there, or barometer there, in terms of why they struggle. Zidane is a different class as it relates to Ozil. Ozil is a very, very skillful player. But Ozil is not declined, didn't start a year ago. Ozil a player who played when he wanted to and disappeared in big game. Ronaldinho had people cheering him from Real Madrid at the Bernabeu when he played against them. Cheering him off the field when he destroyed Real Madrid. That's quality. Zidane did the same when he played, apart from when he headbutted the Italian player in the World Cup. But there was no dispute about their talent. But I listen to talk sports a lot. And what you would hear someone like Conde say is basically, where is Mesut Ozil? Either the height of his play with us. The problem with him is he plays when he wanted to. He didn't necessarily want to get in terms of any difficult situation. Didn't want to go to Stoke. Didn't want to go up north, frankly, when he got too cold and too rough. No player I've had 4 knee surgeries, have a knee problem and recover the next week right away. It doesn't work like that. Knee is one part of your body which doesn't get hurt, and all of a sudden it gets better, and you're good next week, and it hurts the next week, and you're good the next week. He always had an excuse as to why he couldn't play. And Ramsey alluded to this about
I don't believe that. I really don't believe some of the stories that we heard.
No, but I'm saying Ramsey would say that he was a teacher's pet. Wilshere seemed to, big players allude to this, which is you go into Wenger's office and come out, he didn't have to go to Stoke, or he didn't have to train a certain day. And we could see him being a player. When you have immense talent in any field, you get priority treatment. Let's not have it twisted. If you're an engineer, if you are a broker, if you're a chemist, when you're exceptionally talented, you're going to get priority treatment. You're going to get biased treatment. It's just innate to the being. But for fans to keep on saying how exceptional he was when his game had limitations to it, and for me, the most important thing was he didn't turn up a lot in a lot of the big games. When we played the Bayerns of the world, he disappeared. When we played some of the bigger teams, he disappeared. I actually used to track him. I think at one point I got up to like 80 big games, and he didn't turn up in half of those big games. So not to knock Ozil, I think he's an exceptional footballer, talented, skillful, see passes that you and I couldn't even envision seeing, much less to make those passes. I mean, he makes passes which are breathtaking, but a legend has to have sustained performance, and to me, most importantly, produce when it matters most. Differentiate yourself. I give you an example. Apollo and I argue about this all the time. Zaha, in terms of talented players who produce in big games, he destroyed us. He destroyed Man City's Man U. Zaha legend, not even close to being a legend. But to me, I wanted Zaha instead of Pepe because you know what? I know when we play the big games, he's going to turn up. He loves those situations. Grealish is another example of players who, when they go into big games, they're turning up because they love to show they're the best in class. Ozil wasn't the case. Look, he left Real Madrid under, I thought, straight circumstance. If you're that great, Real Madrid doesn't get rid of legends that quickly. When they get older, yes, like Raul, you got to get rid of them. So is he really, why is he left on bad situation there? Wasn't too great. The German team, he left under interesting situation. They didn't treat him right in some cases, but it wasn't the best way how your departure is. And in Arsenal, it was even worse. You can't be a hypocrite, as he was when he commented on the situation with the Muslims in China, but don't comment on his friend's situation in Turkey about how he treats people there. You can't have it both ways. You got to be consistent. Secondly, you can't say you're not taking a pay cut when everybody's taking a pay cut, even if you want to know what's doing the money. You can't talk about Gunnasaurus when you're embarrassed.
You supported that. You supported him though on that. You supported
because
him
he
by
should
saying at the time, and I agree with you. What are you taking a pay cut from?
No, but here's the
Where is
point.
The money that you're saving going.
Yes, I agree.
None of us to this day can
but
say
Tony,
where did that
Tony,
money
here's the
go?
point, Tony. Here's the point, Tony. It's your boss you're dealing with. So even though I may support you making a decision, it's like you don't want to leave now. Well, your boss is saying you have to leave. I think players get treated unfair in a lot of instances, when their contracts get run down, when they want to leave and fans blame them and fans are upset with them. But you have to understand this. If you're going to embarrass the club's going to take punitive actions. That's what's transpiring. That's why he's not playing. And I'm sure he comes from the top saying, Arteta, it's your job. You can play him, but it's your job on the line. And Arteta's going to choose himself, especially given he wasn't doing well. And Arteta probably thinks, you know what? When he was at Man City, Ozil doesn't work hard enough. He played with him. He played with him. I don't think they had an antagonistic relationship. So why is Arteta saying, I'm not playing you? So look, I don't want to spend all the rest of the evening on Ozil because we're almost ended of a program, but saying this, I wish him well. I'm sure he'll do well in a league like La Liga where you don't have to play defense or go to Saudi Arabia or someplace else, or the MLS where they play walk-up football. But the Premier League, I'll say this all the time, is an unforgiving league and doesn't allow you to just walk in a game and not play defense, no matter how good you are, no matter how skillful you are. So it's a difficult situation. But you know what? The best thing of this is we'll save 350K a week, and it will help us move forward financially. So, Ebony, we have come to the end of our program. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. And I'll close by saying, Ebony, what's your final word this evening?
Just keep on moving forward. Yes, we're in this lockdown. I just want to point out, first of all, Apollo, get well soon. I know you're watching. I've seen your comments, but do get well soon. Lisa, much love to you. Everybody have a safe week. Stay safe. Wear a mask if you have to. And just, keep well, everyone, and up the Arsenal.
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah. Just wanted to touch on your point about Grealish and Zaha. Where are they now?
Well, let me answer that. Let me answer that.
Season, I remember both of them started the season like a house on fire.
Right.
And now we've got past Christmas. It's like, is Grealish still playing? Because Aston Villa are in a sudden slump.
Right. No, so let me address that. Let me address that.
So,
yeah, let me address that. Zaha has what, 8 goals? And about
in the first 2 games.
No, not the first 2 games. He has 8 goals for the season. If it was one game, he has 8 goals. It's not just a goal contribution. It's how they changes the other team's strategy about how they play. Villa hasn't played 2 games, actually. Villa is 2 games behind, and they're still up there in the top. And Crystal Palace is doing well for a team with no midfield and struggling. So I'll give you right that the last few games they haven't played as well as they did before, but they're doing really well. Now look at the end of the season, you'll see how well they're doing. And by the way, I say this on Zaha. Emery said he beat us by himself. He beat Man City by himself. He beat Liverpool. I want that player. And we said, no, we're going to take Pepe, who's untried in the league. So here's a question for you, Tony. Would Zaha do better with us than Pepe has done?
Yeah, I agree. I think he does, yeah. And I was in agreement with you originally. I mean, I was Pepe's biggest fan. Listen, I felt that he was going to be the next best thing in our league, not just in our team, but in our league. And he sadly failed to materialize any of that form that I thought we would see. Whether
do you think he'll get it though?
Management, Sorry?
Do you think he'll actually get there at some point? I mean, he's still 25, 26?
I feel he's being badly managed. I really do. I feel he's being badly managed. I feel there is still a modicum of a superb player who can score 15 goals from midfield. Yeah, I just don't understand some of the decisions Arteta makes. Like, he gets everyone to take dead ball situations except the guy who's a dead ball specialist.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't think Arteta is a Pepe supporter. So you understand, managers, they don't dislike players. They dislike the players, how they play. They dislike how they execute on the field. They don't execute their instructions accordingly. It's not that he doesn't like Pepe, he doesn't like certain players. William is a worker, so he probably likes William. Plus, he also brought him in, and he's seen him for years. He didn't buy Pepe, and so sometimes that happens. Any other final comments, Tony, before I conclude?
Yeah, no, I mean, keep the faith, guys. As I said, don't get overinflated egos now that we've won 4 on a trot. Let's hope we can do the business against Crystal Palace on Thursday. We have got another big stretch coming up in February. So, we just carry on. We keep plugging away. Hope the manager gets his combinations right. And, we'll end up, because we aren't far from the top 4. Strangely enough. Another result against Crystal Palace, and we're knocking on the door of top 4 because we're not far away points-wise.
Yeah, my final comments are a few. One is, I think the team, is now in a better place than it was before. I think people were despondent. You couldn't get good results. It was all negative. And the team is lucky that fans were in the stands, because if they were, it would have been even 10 times worse. We're doing better. We have won 4 in a trot. We got away with, I don't know how we won yesterday, because Carroll just scored 2 tap-ins before we went to extra time. But we won. And when you're winning and when you're doing well, that luck thing seemed to arrive more frequently than it does in challenging times. We weren't having any luck before. We played Leicester and they won when we should have won the game. We played other Burnley, they should have gotten beaten. So you create your own luck sometimes. Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinelli, and to a lesser extent, the Willocks of the world, those kids are giving us hope. They are showing the right enthusiasm, the right skills, the right capability and ability to do well. And I'm pleased with that. And my final thing is, I'm not negative about players in general, even though my comments may sound harsh sometimes. I am just a football fan who want my team to do well and to win. And I'm going to call you out if you're not doing well. So I won't call Ozil lazy anymore because he's leaving. It's not my problem anymore. It's another team's problem. Let him go to Fenerbahce, let him go to the States. But I wish him well. I think he's a brilliant footballer. And it's too late for him to play defense. It's not going to happen. It's too late for him to change certain things. So you know what? Great to you, Ozil. We enjoyed some of the contribution you made to us. You were a delight to watch as a footballer, even though I said you were lazy, and you are. And I hope you have much success going forward. And you know, 350 off my wage book, helps me out. So I have no problem with it. And to Kolasinac and to other players like Mustafi, when they were with us, they made an effort. They just weren't good enough. So we're not going to knock you going forward when you're not with us. We're just saying thanks for the memories. Some of them were not always pleasant, but for the good ones, we appreciate it, and good luck going forward. And to the audience, again, thanks for being here. We appreciate you joining us. Love all the comments. Sorry I couldn't get to all the comments. Now I realize how difficult this is to do, trying to listen and speak and to click on all these comments and make sure it gets out there. And most importantly, before I go, Apollo, brother, I hope you get better quickly. Tell the virus to go. If you don't understand what that means, you speak English. It means the virus disappear, dissipate, go away, leave Apollo alone so he can go back to his family. And Apollo, brother, thank you for this opportunity. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you, Apollo.
Yeah.
Recovery.
Guys, can I just say something quickly before we finish, Bertram? Look, we're in lockdown 3.0, or call it whatever you like, but once again we're in this lockdown situation, and I know there's a lot of people who live alone, and some guys, they look to Arsenal for that escapism from the constant doom and gloom that we're seeing around the globe, and most prevalent with the pandemic. But guys, if you need assistance, please come and talk to us. We in the 101 group are a group of really nice guys. We will talk to anybody. If anybody wants to talk one-to-one, I'm sure somebody will happily give you a call or talk to you on Facebook, because that's where we're at, on the Facebook group. But please don't let Arsenal or anyone ruin your mental health. Let your mental health stay strong. Keep in contact with somebody and be good, yeah? So
Nabil decided to join us at the end of the broadcast.
Guys.
Nabil, welcome.
You know
what? Hi,
Nabil. Hi, everyone. Man, look, it's hard, man, because my missus wouldn't. I promise. Excuse me, can you give me 5 minutes, sir? No, it's all right. Go on. I promised my missus I'd do something for her, and I had to do it. When you can't get out of it, I'm like, you know what? I had to do it. And then my young man wants to come home, so I got to be here for him. So this is the first moment I got, and I remember Apollo got in contact with me today. And I said I definitely sort of try and contribute. So sorry, guys. I'm really sorry about that.
So we just concluded. So what's your final? So start and end. How was your week? This week passed, and finally, as things are going away, what's your message to the audience and Arsenal fans about your perspective of Arsenal and the direction going forward?
Like, mate, listen. I don't think I've experienced more of a roller coaster with Arsenal in ages, especially in such a short period of time, because if you remember just a couple of weeks ago, we were staring at relegation, whether people don't want to talk about relegation or not. Whether people thought we was going to get relegated or not. You don't sit 2 or 3 places above the zone and not start talking about it. And we was there, and there was no win in sight. And we've gone from that to seeing players like Tierney, Saka, ESR, Emil Smith-Rowe, Martinelli, poor lad, Lacazette, you know, and to be fair, Xhaka's been showing off as well. Gabriel, Mari, you know, we've seen such a turnaround from them. You know, there's real reason for optimism. You know, I really don't want to see it reverse, this little trend of form reverse. You know, yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, it doesn't matter who you put out, as long as you're not putting out Willian, as long as you're not putting out Pepe, you know, and as long, I feel like you've got to keep Lacazette in the starting lineup. Or Aubameyang is doing good, but I feel like you've got to keep up with Olba and the other guys. And then we're in January, so there's still the optimistic hope that we're going to get maybe 1 or 2 new guys in that's going to help us. But even without it, we look good.
So someone's asked a question. I'm not going to ask you the question. I'll just post what they said. It's on the screen. I'm not sure you want to answer that either.
No, I can answer that. I can answer that. Do you know what? I can answer that. What she wanted to do was go for a nice romantic walk by the canals. It's freezing cold here. I tried to do it, but you know, there's some really nice canals in Marlow and Windsor and, you know, by the Thames, and she just likes all of that. And I promised I'd take her for a little drive and we'd do a little bit of a walk and so forth. And, you know, I had to do it. Even though
I feel better that you didn't join us because you gave your missus. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. I feel better that was a good
well done.
Was saying to me,
excellent.
He was saying to me, please, can you just jump on? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then she said, yeah, what about this? And I'm like, okay. Snookers.
All right.
Things you do for love.
Well, thanks for joining us, Nabil. Thanks, Ebony. Thanks, Tony. Okay. And audience, thank you for joining us. We couldn't do this without you. Enjoy the rest of the day. And by the way, I hope next week is less challenging and less hectic for everyone. Peace out.
Peace.
Right. Peace.
Bye.